My name is Dr. Gabrielle Corradino, and I am a biological oceanographer, also known as a marine biologist. So, I study some of the smallest organisms in our ocean called plankton. Here they are. I'm sure some of you have heard of them before. Plankton are the base of our food webs. So, pretty much we would have no sharks, no whales, no seals, nothing if it weren't for these very small, very important organisms. So part of my job as a marine biologist is research. I work full time part of the biology department at Barnard College of Columbia University in Harlem, in New York City. And I also teach one class down at NYU. I teach environmental studies at NYU. And so part of my job, probably about 60% of it is just teaching, is just figuring out lectures, working with students, really training the next generation of scientists. And then the other 40-ish% is spent just with research. So I go out and I use a net and I collect plankton like this. And then I bring it back to the lab and I look under a microscope and I look to see and identify what type of plankton are there and also how healthy the system is. In addition to microscopy, I also use molecular biology. So I also, will take out the DNA of all the different types of plankton and look at the DNA of the system. And again, looking to see who's there, how healthy the system is, because if our plankton isn't healthy, then we're not going to have great, fish and food to eat. We're not going to have beautiful large mammals, and the whole system could be in trouble. As you know, we are in a time of climate change, right? So the ocean temperature is rising. There's also a lot of pollution in our oceans. And so marine science is really important right now, right? There's a saying in the field that my mentor and advisor taught me. And it's, if you can read, think a teacher. If you can breathe, think a plankton, because these very small, important organisms, in addition to being the base of our food web and being the food that our food eats, we also don't give plankton enough credit because they provide us with oxygen. Trees get a lot of the credit, but actually plankton are the ones to thank. They produce more than 60%, some say upwards of 70%, depending on what study you're looking at, of the oxygen in our atmosphere. So being a marine scientist, you get to really dive into really cool things like that. Being in the field of marine science is really incredible because it's so diverse with interests. If you're very passionate about water access and human rights and things like that, you can go into the policy arm of marine science. If you're super interested in chemistry and the nitrogen cycle and the carbon cycle, you can become a chemical oceanographer. If you are really interested in coding and computational work, you can go into that arm and work with really big data sets. So the world, is your oyster, in marine science. I, in particular, work with biology. So I focus on all things ecology. I focus on the living organisms like plankton, how different types of plankton interact with one another, and also how they interact with their environment. So that's where I kind of sit. I have always been interested in marine science since I was in kindergarten, since I knew that marine science was a potential job. My very first internship was junior year of high school, and then my second one was senior year of high school, and that's pretty much what I wrote my college essays on. And I started doing research as soon as I got to college, and I just never really deviated from the field of marine science. The jobs I had have been different, but I've never really left the ocean. I've always kind of stayed in this sphere. Once I graduated undergrad, I took a few years and I tried out different jobs and figured out, kind of who I was as a scientist. That's pretty normal. And then I went into graduate school because I knew that I wanted to work at a university. And in order to be a professor, you really need your PhD. In order to do higher order research, you need your PhD. You do not need your PhD to become a marine scientist, though. You can be a marine scientist pretty much on any level. In fact, you can go and do an internship right now. Again, my first internship was in high school. You can go and contact, your local water testing plant that tests your local lakes or rivers, or if you happen to be by the ocean waterways. There's a water testing facility in every single state. There has to be. So just going and talking to them and figuring out, how are you testing your water reservoir? Is there a position available, or can I shadow you for a day? Is a really great place to start in marine science, and figuring out, what you like about it. The positives and negatives of marine science are obvious, right? You get to travel a lot. If you really want to be by the ocean and in the water, you can go be by the ocean and be in the water. It's great. I love it. For marine science, travel is a positive and also a negative. It can be kind of exhausting. I spent a lot of time in the Gulf of Mexico when I was a graduate student, and I spent a good amount of time on ships. And I will say that I get terribly, terribly seasick as an oceanographer. I have awful motion sickness. I hurt my ear while diving many years ago, and it kind of just messed up my whole ability to like sit in trains or cars for long periods of time or be on boats. And so I throw up every time I'm on a small boat, and that's okay because you just throw up and you go back to working. So it kind of is what it is. So if you get seasick, it is totally fine. Actually, there are quite a few marine scientists that I know that get seasick. Another negative or something to kind of be aware of in the field is that it's very competitive, and you really have to want to be a marine scientist to be in the field, because there are a lot of people that want these jobs, and you have to really, really, really be dedicated to it and be patient. A lot of the times when you graduate from undergrad, you may not get your dream position right away. You may have to work other roles first, and that's just kind of with the territory. Pay is okay. I have a lot of friends that work in HR and in business that make a lot more than I do, but the pay is fine. I'm not in it for anything other than just pure passion. I love this field and I couldn't really do anything else. So kind of think about that. If you're getting into it for whatever reason, just be a little flexible with yourself and say, okay, the likelihood that I'm going to graduate and work with killer whales for my very first position is probably unlikely, but maybe I'll be able to work with fish, I'll be able to work with birds, or I'll be able to, do other positions. And when that dream position opens, I'll have a little bit more experience under my belt. So that's something to kind of note. Pretty much those are the main things that I can think of as far as, just maybe some negatives or things that you might want to think about. Pretty much, if you have any questions about anything that I've said so far, feel free to email me. I'll add it to the bottom of the screen there. As you kind of think about if marine science maybe is for you, I recommend going out to your local lake or river, or if you happen to live by the ocean or shoreline, and going out and actually engaging with your natural environment. So go to your local library or used bookstore and get a few books. I recommend getting a few taxonomy books, and these are about $3, $4 that I paid for them. They're really inexpensive, used. This is the National Audubon Field Guide for Sea Creatures. And what I want you to do is they have these for lakes and they have these for each state. Each state has their own, natural guide. And you can actually go and begin to identify using these guides, the natural world around you, and get to know your own environment. Being a marine biologist, you have to have some sort of natural curiosity about the organisms, and you might as well start in your own backyard. So go to the library, rent some books. Also, a really easy place to start is birding. So this is bird finding in New England. Again, this was $3.50 at a used bookstore. And what you can do is find this one in particular is divided up by states and the popular birds in each state. There are birds everywhere, and so birding is a really, really good place to kind of, engage with your natural areas in your own backyard and seeing if being out on cold, rainy days and, collecting data is for you. The other books I'm going to recommend are Silent Spring by Rachel Carson and Four Fish by Paul Greenberg. Both of these are excellent. I make all my students read these two books, and they're really easy reads. They're pretty quick. Rachel Carson's a marine biologist, or was a marine biologist, and she wrote Silent Spring, which really kicked off the environmental science movement. Awesome, awesome book. Talks a lot about water pollution and how it impacts fish and birds, and then in turn us. And then Paul Greenberg talks quite a bit about what's on our dinner plate and how we engage with the food that we eat, and through these four fish. So these are some books for you to consider in case you want to learn more about marine science and learn about your natural curiosity as a biologist. If you have any questions, as I mentioned, please, please, please feel free to reach out to me. I hope this has been helpful to you, and good luck in your endeavors for marine science. Thanks.